Welcome to Branding the Experience. We discuss ways how we can create environments where employees actually want to come to work and customers want to keep coming back. Brought to you by Bator Training and Consulting and Break Ice Marketing.
Here are your hosts, Ken Bator of Bator Training and Consulting and Heather Dowell of Break Ice Marketing.
To bring this to one of my favorite topics, and I wrote an article about this almost 10 years ago. I think it applies just as well today as it did, a decade ago or even 3 decades ago. And here we are in the midst of baseball playoffs, so I want to bring it up. I wrote an article on the batting order of brand associations because I think that one, especially for folks that are executives or business owners that are not creatives, they're more numbers people, that it helps to explain the importance of brand associations and it helps to give them a framework. Right. And I'll give the example. And by the way, anybody that wants the article, I wrote it way back when for Credit Union Business Magazine. I'm happy to share it with you, free of charge, but you'll have to give me your email.
I read for the first time and I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. And you're probably not even a huge baseball fan.
No, I admit I'm not a huge one, but it's relevant and timely still. So even though it was written, even though when was it written, Ken? It was written a while ago, but
I wrote it back in 2017.
Okay, I was thinking 2016, so a year off. So yeah, so it's 8 years old now, but it was like it was written today.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you don't have to be a baseball fan to understand it. I mean, if you're aware that there is this sport called baseball and that to play baseball, you have 9 players in a lineup, and generally you're going to put your best, fastest hitter first, and you're going ninth is probably going to be, your worst hitter. There are exceptions, but, generally that is the case. And generally, your really strong hitters are 4, 5, 6, right in the middle of the lineup. And I like to think of brand associations as a batting lineup in that, all right, you only have, and you can speak to this better than I can, you only have a little bit of time to reach people, especially today.
Less, yeah.
Yeah, it used to be probably like maybe 2 seconds. Now maybe it's, 0.2 seconds.
Yeah.
So your leadoff hitter, when it comes to brand associations, better be your best hitter. I'll give you the wrong way of doing it, and we'll talk about credit unions because, whether you love them or hate them, in general, there are many exceptions out there, but in general, they're very poor in marketing. And
not if they use us.
Not if they use Break Ice Marketing.
Break Ice Marketing.
I can tell if they've used Break Ice Marketing or if they're, using, usually for small credit unions, they have somebody who's a part-time receptionist, also cleans out the garbage cans and handles marketing all at the same time. And they pay him $20,000 a year. Anyhow, now that I have like half the credit unions ticked off at me. But generally what they'll do is, because they're not that creative, they'll think that, okay, being a credit union, because it's a non-for-profit type of a business, and that is something that is a good quality brand association, but the fact is it doesn't excite anybody. So to lead off, and I've seen commercials like that. I can think of a commercial for a credit union out here in the Los Angeles area. I won't say who it is. It's a sizable credit union, but they did a commercial which was on a lot of local channels, and the CEO got up and did like this mock interview. Somebody played a reporter and, shoved a microphone in her mouth and, and said, why should people consider, credit union? And it's like, well, first of all, we're non-for-profit. But we have all of the same products and services that you'll find at most of the big banks. So using that example, your leadoff hitter is that whole non-for-profit aspect of a credit union, which I will go to my grave saying that nobody cares about. And then your number 2 hitter is, and we're comparing ourselves to all of our competitors. We have all the same stuff as these competitors. So even the most ignorant consumer unconsciously is thinking, well, if you have the same stuff,
Why don't I just
what
use them?
why,
Yeah,
why don't I just keep on using, Chase or Wells Fargo or Bank of America if you don't have anything special, if you just have the same stuff, and by the way, you don't sound that excited about it, why do I need to go through the
right,
trouble of changing?
right.
Yeah, I don't. So, what I suggest in the article, and I suggest to my clients, and then I'll turn it over to you, is we need to lead off, really, really strong. So I've done a lot of work with first responder credit unions. Let's lead off with something like we've been working with first responder credit unions for X number of years. That's a place where maybe that longevity comes into place. Maybe that's your number two or your number three. Maybe you lead off with, do you know that we have 0% loans for officers that have to buy uniforms to start out? Now you've got your niche. You know
Mhm.
exactly who you're talking to. These guys and gals I know for a fact, are not working with a lot of money, and they've got many departments have to
Right.
buy their uniform, have to buy their gun, and to say, hey, you know what, we trust you, and we're going to give you a 0% loan. That hits them right in the face in a good way.
You're
Now you
matching your product to their need and
right.
emotional connection too. Having that something that I think that's important too, having an emotional connection.
Right. So now what you've done in my latter example is you've had a leadoff hitter that actually has gotten on board, has actually gotten on base. You've
Mhm.
given me a reason. Now if like if I'm the imposing pitcher, now I'm alert because you
Mhm.
got a guy on first base. Now I want to really think about this second hitter.
Mhm.
Now I'm engaged to want to hear number two, number three, number four, which may be, killed in line of duty, debt protection, which may be, hey, you know what? We've got like Schools First does out here. We have a checking account that's just for teachers. Maybe that's number two or number three. And then, you keep engaging people and they want to go through this lineup. Maybe, somewhere around six, seven, or eight, you say, oh, and by the way, we're a credit union, we're non for profit. We have a volunteer board. We're not here for the stockholders. We're here for the stakeholders.
Right.
Because that credit union non-for-profit aspect, is it a valuable brand association? Yes, it is. Is it your leadoff hitter? Is it your, to keep with my analogy, is it, your 310 average, steals 25 bases, has is one of the top five fastest guys in the league? No, it's not. It's more like your second baseman that bats about 220 but doesn't commit errors, that shows up every day, is gonna every once in a while get that big hit. That's the guy you put at like seventh, eighth, not the leadoff.
Right.
So does
Right.
my analogy make sense, or am I just
Yeah, no, it
freaking
does.
nuts?
And well, and speaking of credit unions, we work with a lot of credit unions, non-credit unions as well. But I'm going to use a credit union as an example since we were speaking, you had referenced credit unions. So we have a credit union client. Again, I'm not going to mention names either. And they are a community credit union, which means, they're open, to pretty much everyone in the area that they serve. They happen to be here in California. So they're open to most of California. So you won't know who they are. Lots of credit unions in California. But they, have a lot of the same products and services as, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, the big banks, many of the same conveniences, except for they only have one branch. So, a lot of credit unions, if they're small, mid-size, they might only have one, a few, branches, whereas a Bank of America, I don't know how many branches they have, but they have a lot. They're nationwide.
They got
And
a few.
so, yeah, so and they're competing amongst not just banks, but they're competing amongst other credit unions in their own area too. And I know, one of the things about credit unions is it's good to be collaborative and work together, but they're also still competitive. They're your competitors also. So they are trying they're trying to reach more members because what's happening is that their members, like most credit unions, their members are aging. The average age of members is getting higher. and their member, their net member count is decreasing. They're losing members, or sad to say, some of them might be dying
Hmm.
faster than what they're gaining. Or those that they are gaining, they're maybe not loyal. So maybe they bring them in the indirect way. So they're, bringing them in through an auto loan. But once that auto loan is paid off, then they're not a member anymore. They're not an active member. They don't get a checking account. They don't get any other loans. They might not even get another auto loan.
Hmm.
So they are trying to reach new members, and they're like, help us. Like, what do we do? Because we can't say that we have a better checking account. And we could have like a $200 cash back offer, but Bank of America has something similar. Wells Fargo does. We can't say that, we're more convenient. We can't say that, we could say we're all the same, but what's different about us? So we went back and we looked, okay, first of all, their target audience, who they serve is, their community, but where they started was university. So they
Hmm.
started with, serving a 4-year university. That's where they started years and years ago. And now since then they broaden and, they serve their greater community. But that university, those students, that age, that young adult age, I'd say, 18 to 30-year-olds, that's who they're really wanting to target, because that's that younger generation. And they're the ones that, that maybe don't have, they might have a checking account already somewhere else, but it's going to be easier to get them to convert, or move all their financial, stuff over to this credit union. Maybe they can get an auto loan, but then, get the checking account from there, maybe eventually get a home loan from there, or refinance or HELOC or whatever.
Hmm.
So rather than, we're doing a couple of things. First of all, rather than saying that they're just like everyone else, we have one branch though. It's first of
So
all,
we're not like everybody else.
yeah. But first of all, finding a way to attract. So, we're, messaging, and we don't want to alienate, the olders or the existing members, but so right now what they're doing is we're doing a lot of videos, Instagram Reels, TikTok, and I don't know if you're familiar with the term UGC, user generated creator content. So, if you go to, I don't know if you use TikTok, but do you use Instagram? Yeah, I know you use Instagram. You're on Instagram.
Yeah, you like my stuff on
Yeah.
Instagram. You know I'm on
But I'm
Instagram. Come on,
talking, I
Heather.
know I'm talking about talking to anyone who might be listening in case
Right.
you're an older person. You just don't use Instagram Reels. I mean, we've all seen them, they're the 30-second reels, and you have someone
Right.
talking, and a lot of times they, if you're on TikTok, and especially if it's, you got the younger people talking, and it's
Mhm.
very informal and authentic. And so right now we're working on getting, creators, the creators, so people that's that age, and they are authentic, and they are, not even really trying to sell them. They're just giving information. So it's on a variety of topics. That might be, how do I, 30 seconds long, so you have to be fast on these. But, how do I fix my budget? Or how do I, raise my credit score? And so, it's a long-term strategy, because initially, that those type of videos are not selling auto loans, right? And
Mhm.
they're not selling checking accounts, but they're educating in an authentic, entertaining way that will
Mhm.
hopefully increase the following, where people will want to follow, will want to engage, maybe even want to share. And then when they do need that auto loan, who are they going to think of? They're going to think of that credit union, and that credit union is connecting with them with, messaging, and even people that are relatable to those that they're targeting. So it's creating a brand association. They can speak to a real life person. That's the other message that we're getting out there.
Mhm.
With those big, Bank of Americas, I'll tell you, Wells Fargo's one. My daughter's boyfriend, he's 17, and he needed to open a student checking account. And I'm going to use Wells Fargo as an example. So I'm sorry if
Mhm.
anyone from Wells Fargo is listening to this.
I
So
do my business banking with
hey,
Wells
I was
Fargo.
trying to, yeah.
I frankly really used to like their brand. Maybe not so much anymore, but I'll get to that. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, anyways, I'm like a second mom to him. And so I was trying to help him out, and I was calling Wells Fargo. And I just had a couple questions about their student checking account, because I wanted to ask so I could let him know, and I was going to go in with him and all that, but I didn't want to waste our time. So I called Wells Fargo. And first of all, I had to do all these prompts to speak to a live person. I finally get a live person. I had basic questions. I forget what they were, but they truly were basic. And I think it was, does he get a Visa debit card with this? I think that was one of my questions.
Hmm.
Or does he get a debit card with this? Maybe not necessarily, but and the person that I was speaking to didn't have the answer. I think, but I'm not sure. Like seriously. And they couldn't even
That's when you just say, really?
and they couldn't even transfer me to the right person. And so they said, I forget, so and so, I'll just call him Sam. Sam's the one that you need to speak to about that. Can I take your name and number and have Sam get back with you? And I was a little annoyed because, like, I want the answer right then and there. It wasn't on their website. So I wanted to speak to a live person. It took me a long enough time to get a long person. When I finally did, he didn't even have the answer. So I said, okay. So the whole day went by. I never heard from the Sam until like noon the next day. So over 24 hours later. And he apologized, but I thought, that's crazy. And then I tried in the
Hmm.
meantime, I tried because Wells Fargo, they kind of operate independently. So in the meantime, I was getting impatient. So I tried to call a different Wells Fargo branch, hoping I could get an answer from maybe because I thought, okay, even though they answer the phones independently, they're all probably going to have that same student checking account, same student checking. They're all representing the same student checking account. So I tried to call a different Wells Fargo branch because I was getting impatient waiting for Sam to call me back. And I couldn't even get a hold of anyone. They just kept ringing,
Hmm.
ringing, ringing. And so I was like about to give up on Wells Fargo. It's just like, this is crazy. And so that's one of the message points that we're using, this credit union is that we make it easy for them to speak to a live person. So yes, they only have one branch, but who cares? No one wants to go to the branch anymore anyway. Most people don't, especially that audience, that 18 to 30-year-old. They're busy. Most of them have never stepped foot in a branch and they know that they have these other services and these other options out there that you can just open an account online. So that's one of the message points is that, we're friendly, those we're picking friendly creators for the videos. And also that they can easily, if they want to pick up the phone, if they want to do a chat, speak to that live person and not have to wait 24 hours to hear back or not have to, speak to AI or, have all
Hmm.
these prompts that you have to go through before speaking, finding the person that you need to speak to. So I'm sorry, that was long-winded. Um, but just want to give
But good.
an example.
No, I like it for on a number of levels. One, I think that's where you because I believe, and this is where some credit unions kind of get off the rails or they get too mired into this economies of scale thing.
Mm,
And yes, I understand if you're a small credit union, and I define a small credit union as under 100 million in assets.
mhm.
You can't do everything. I get it for a lot of reasons that I'm not going to get into because I'll start rambling. But what, like I always say, especially in strategic planning, it's like don't let what you can't do keep you
Right.
from doing what you can do.
And do you
And I truly believe, and I talk a lot about restaurants because I used to do a significant amount of business with them. I don't anymore, just because probably I'm just not working that hard. Uh, but but I always feel that if a ma and pa restaurant can be around for 80 years and three generations and be able to find a way to be profitable,
Mhm.
it have just one restaurant or a couple in the community or whatever, then a small credit union can survive and thrive too. But you
Right.
got to find that niche. I have a credit union client that only has one branch, but they're smart enough to just deal with one group, and that's healthcare. Yeah.
Mhm.
And there's some real value in that, and maybe that's a whole different show. I mean, you look at credit unions that really, really understand their niche and either what they do and or who they serve. It can really, really survive and stand out. You mentioned, the client that went from university to community. I always hold my head and go, oh, you're giving away your niche completely. And when you go community, now you're going head to head with the big players. Yeah, you've just given away one of your leadoff hitters in the brand association batting order, because
Mhm.
now you no longer could say, hey, we know how to serve restaurant workers better than anybody else. We know how to serve teachers better than anybody else. We know how to serve firefighters better than anybody else. Now you're just like everybody else. But anyhow, back to my client real quick. They only have one branch, but they understand their niche of healthcare workers, and they found that it was a lot easier to invest very well into ITMs, not ATMs, but ITMs, where you actually have a screen and you have an individual there, where you still have that personal touch, but
Mhm.
you have your experts, your professionals all in one place. And
Right.
maybe the hospital is like 15 miles away, but they could, if they want to talk to Mary, they don't have to drive 15 miles. They could talk to Mary right there on the screen and get the help that they want. This has been Branding the Experience. Learn more about Bator Training and Consulting and Break Ice Marketing at www.btcinc.net/marketing.